Now let's talk about magic. I've heard so much junk about magic. You know, all of us as children were first attracted to magical things. Some of us as children seem to experience magical things, but nonetheless we're all attracted to them and to stories of magic and all of that. We have the same magician. What is it? Is magic something that you create by drawing a circle in the ground with a pentagram inside and running around the outside and chanting counterclockwise, in Latin? Is that what it's about? In 1983, when I disappeared, and I ended up here in Ibiza, I was offered a place to sleep. It was actually the roof of somebody's house. John Hurt, actually, the actor, the Elephant Man. Anyway, it was the first morning after a very damp night on the roof. I learned that Ibiza is a damp place. I came inside to the house below, and it was occupied by a painter who had befriended me, and he was preparing for a vernissage, an opening show. And the house was just filled with canvases, some framed, some not. He was just getting that all together. It was quite a mess. And I walked over to an armoire that was standing in the corner, and one of these, big, heavy, tall boxes that you hang clothes in. And the door of the armoire, it was a glass door, so that, it was a full-length glass door, so you could look at yourself. And the door was partially open, and hanging over the edge of the door was an Indian longi, and a longi is actually just a piece of cloth. It's a rectangular piece of cloth that in Asia is very common. You wrap it around your waist, and it's wonderful for hot country living. And it was just hanging over this door. And I suddenly caught myself looking in the mirror and looking into my own eyes. And in that experience of in that moment, in whatever that is, of looking into my eyes, it's very hard to describe these things. It's sort of like what happens when your ears bubble in an airplane, and you sort of feel cut off from the reality of the space you're in. I had this sensation of being cut off from the reality of the space that I was in. And then I watched, and that was the thing that was so extraordinary. I watched my hands grab this longi off of the edge of that door, that mirrored door, and slide my fingers down to either end so that I was holding it from its long length from either end and snapping it in the air with a kind of, it looked like I had done that all my life, and snapped it up and over my head. And it was something that in that motion, in that separated space, I watched myself do a ritual act that I had never done, had never contemplated doing. Magic, you see, has been tied up with so much vanity. Just vanity. I'm a great admirer of Lao Tzu, the great Chinese thinker. And of course he's famous for saying things just happen, which in the hip 70s became shit happens, which is a wonderful expression because it's the deepest of truths. And I do love that awareness, and it's so clear. And it was so obvious to me, and it was so obvious to me from then on, because I was about to go through years of mystical experiences, so-called, none of which I had anything to do with. I mean, it's not like I was setting them up, looking for them. I didn't have any rituals. I didn't have any of this. I didn't have any of that. I simply experienced very odd things happening in that sense. In the same way that I experience a song coming through me and it comes out as a song. In the same way that I experience what I'm doing with you now, because I have no idea, never do, never prepared. I don't know what I'm going to say. Well, it's just flowing through, that's all. All I can do is filter, and sometimes I filter teaching, and sometimes I filter music, and every once in a while I filter magic. See, we need to disengage from the vanity, this vanity that's here in the 49. I mean, remember that. This rush that came to humans when they could dominate the mammalian world. Ah, what a rush they had. How special they thought they were. I mean, it's real primitive down there. And it's something to keep in mind. And you see, there is this assumption that, magic doesn't happen. Magic is a ritual that you can perform. And unfortunately, and I only say that because that's my perception, is that every once in a while you would have somebody who would, have magic happen to them, and the way in which they would present that is, this is what I did, and this is what happened. It's like the painter who says, I painted the picture. Well, did you? There's an incredible vanity in that. I mean, it is what happened, regardless of whether you've trained and sweated and all of this and blah, blah, blah. This is a choiceless life, after all. It's just what's happening, and it's what's moving through, and magic is just like that. It's why I've always felt such empathy for, the New Age people who were looking for the mystical in their life. And how tragic it is that, looking for it is as clear a prediction that you're not going to get it as anything. It really is. It happens. And it doesn't happen when you want it to happen. And it doesn't give you what you think you should get. And there are so many people still today caught in the 49 primitiveness of the sacrifice game, who still play high priest and shaman, who take their little mystical moment, and they turn it into ritual and habit, and they tell other people that they can have it too, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And if you don't, you're out, and, all of these things. It's quite a movie to look at. So, when you're looking at the mystical way, understand that not everything that we're looking at is positive within the context of the development of our consciousness and our time now. And to see that so many of the things that are part of the so-called mystical process have brought what is in fact great harm and evil and crime into this life. That so many human beings have been forced into homogenization, humiliated, by the sacrificing principle of what are primitive spiritual moments that have been concretized into endless millennium-long rituals, endless rituals. I mean, there's still these people in the springtime who actually crucify themselves, publicly, to demonstrate their connection to the sacrifice principle. It's all over the place out there. And the vanity. Oh, such vanity. It's the thing that astonishes me the most. I mean, I'm blessed with a big ego, so I can really smell the stink of vanity. And it's astonishing. You know, what I did. I did this, I did that, you know. I worked it out, I figured it out, you know. All of these things, all this I created it, I did it, I am it. It happened because I did this, it happened because I did that. Lies. Lies. Just happens. And if it doesn't happen, you don't get it. Period. It's just like that.